The sun was dropping fast when Jack Calder rode into the dying frontier town, his boots aching and his throat dry from a day of dust and silence. The town barely deserved a name anymore. Most of its buildings leaned like tired old men, their windows shattered, doors hanging loose, memories rotting inside them. Jack had planned to ride through, but dark clouds were piling up in the west, and his horse was near collapse. One night of shelter was no longer a luxury, it was survival. At the edge of the street stood a small wooden house that looked strangely untouched. Its roof was whole, its door upright, and the windows, though dusty, were unbroken. An old man sitting outside the saloon rented it to Jack for a few coins. His hand trembled as he took the money. He avoided Jack's eyes and muttered that no one stayed there long. Jack didn't press him. He'd learned that some questions brought trouble faster than bullets. Inside, the house was dim but dry. The air smelled of old pine and cold ashes. Jack set down his saddle and rolled his shoulders, feeling a rare sense of relief. Then he noticed things that didn't fit. A cup sitting on the table that hadn't gathered dust. Ashes in the hearth that were still faintly warm. A blanket folded too neatly for an abandoned place. His instincts tightened like a drawn wire. Jack checked every room slowly, revolver half raised, boots careful not to creak, nothing, no one. Still, the feeling stayed. The house wasn't empty, it was waiting. Night fell hard. Wind rattled the shutters, and thunder growled far off. Jack sat near the fire, eyes fixed on the shadows stretching across the floor. Just as he began to relax, a soft sound reached him. Not wind, not wood settling. A slow, careful scrape, as if something beneath the floor was moving. Jack stood, heart pounding. The sound came again, clearer now, from just behind the kitchen table. He knelt and brushed away dirt and ash. There, hidden beneath loose boards, was a thin crack of darkness. Someone was under the floor. Jack gripped his gun, breath shallow, knowing one thing for certain. Renting this house for one. Night had just turned into something far more dangerous than he ever imagined. Jack barely had time to breathe before the loose floorboard shifted. A narrow gap opened and a pair of dark, alert eyes looked up at him from the shadows below. In one smooth motion, a woman rose from the hidden space, moving with the quiet precision of a hunted animal. She held a knife, its blade steady, her body tense and ready to strike. Moonlight slipped through the window and revealed her. Features, dust-streaked skin, torn buckskin clothing, and eyes filled with equal parts fear and defiance. Jack slowly lifted his hands, easing the revolver back into its holster. He had faced gunmen and outlaws before, but this was different. This woman wasn't here to rob or kill. She was here to survive. For a long moment they stared at each other, the silence thick enough to choke on. Then she spoke in a low, controlled voice, warning him not to come closer. He told her he'd rented the house for one night and meant no harm. His voice stayed calm, but his mind raced. She watched every breath he took, every twitch of his fingers. Finally, she lowered the knife just enough for him to see the tremor in her hand. She was exhausted, wounded, and running out of places to hide. She told him her name was Nalin. She was Apache. For weeks, she had lived beneath that floor, slipping out only at night to find water and scraps of food. Soldiers had come through the region, burning camps, hunting survivors, and asking questions in towns like this one. The house had once been a secret shelter, known only to her people. Now it was all she had left. Jack felt the weight of her words settle on him. Helping her meant risking his own life. Turning her in meant certain death for her. The law would not care about her story, only her blood. He looked at the thin scar on her arm, still red and angry, and imagined what she had endured to stay alive. Before either could say more, a distant sound cut through the night, hoofbeats, not one rider, several. They moved with purpose, not the lazy rhythm of travelers. Nalin's eyes widened, her body stiffening as fear flashed across her face. She knew that sound too well. Jack crossed to the window and peered through a crack in the shutter. Lanterns bobbed in the darkness at the far end of the street. Soldiers were entering the town. The room seemed to shrink around them. One night of shelter had turned into a trap, and by morning, someone would be dead unless a decision was made fast. The hoofbeats grew louder, echoing off the empty buildings as lantern light crept closer to the house. Jack felt time closing in on him, each second tightening like a noose. Nalin moved back toward the hidden floor space, instinct telling her to disappear again. But Jack caught her wrist gently and shook his head. The soldiers were thorough. If they searched the house, they would find the trap door. Hiding would only delay the inevitable. Jack's mind raced through old memories of outlaw, trails and forgotten. Paths carved into the land long before maps existed. He had ridden these canyons years ago, running from men not so different from the ones now riding into town. There was another way out, but it meant choosing sides when he had spent most of his life avoiding them. He told Nalin to gather what little she had. His voice was low, steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. Outside, orders were being shouted. Doors slammed. Boots hit the dirt. Jack kicked open the back door and led her into the alley just as the first knock sounded on the front of the house. They moved fast, keeping to the shadows, slipping between collapsed fences and abandoned wagons. A shout went up behind them. Someone had seen movement. Jack fired a single shot into the air, drawing attention away from Nalin as he ran in the opposite direction for a moment, then doubled back through a side street. Confusion spread. Horses screamed. Men yelled orders over one another. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier, turning dust into mud and masking their footsteps. They reached the edge of town, where the land dropped sharply into a narrow ravine. Jack helped Nalin down the rocky slope, his hands scraping and bleeding as he steadied her. A bullet struck stone near his head, sending sparks into the darkness, but the sound was swallowed by thunder. They ran until the town lights disappeared and only the storm remained. At the mouth of the canyon, Nalin stopped. She reached into a small leather pouch and pressed a carved wooden symbol into Jack's palm. It was smooth from age and handling, marked with signs he didn't understand but felt deeply. Her eyes met his, filled now not with fear but gratitude and respect. Without words, they parted. Nalin vanished into the canyon paths of her people. Jack mounted his horse and rode the opposite direction, knowing that when dawn came, the house would stand empty again, and no one would ever believe what truly happened there in a single dangerous night.